48. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive in if that's okay with folks. It's wonderful. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. It is really important. This is the kind of lifeblood of the work of the church, and we have a lot of good stuff to share with you about what's happened in the last year and what's happening in the future. So this is going to be a great meeting, really. There's a lot of good stuff here to talk about. Before we begin anything else, though, why don't we open in prayer? The Lord be with you. Holy Lord, you have no body here on earth but ours. This body that is the church, the body of Christ. We thank you for that incredible and holy and awe-inspiring mystery that you work through us, through people as broken as us, that you call us to your name, and that we have the grace to follow you. Lord, we ask you to breathe your blessing on this place, to fill your people with the knowledge of your presence, to fill your community with the work of your Spirit, that we may be called to do the work you have brought us to do, and that we may feel your peace, a peace which passes all understanding, a peace which the world cannot give. In your holy name we ask these things. Amen. Okay. Well, very good. So the first item on the agenda, Ron Overholt, Senior Warden.
When I first talked to Jean 5 years ago or so and asked her if she'd be willing to be a member of the Bishops' Committee, and she thought, I don't belong on the Bishops' Committee, but she did, and she's been there and been tremendous the whole time. So I just want to thank Jean for all your service. But I want to appoint Jean as the clerk of the meeting today, the annual meeting, and accept the minutes from last year's meeting, from 2023. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you. Very good. Laurie. So the first thing I want to do is I want to say a huge word of thanksgiving. We've had some turnover in our leadership here in our Bishops' Committee, and it's with great thanksgiving I want to thank all of these people that have served in recent years, that have been part of this committee, or ending their terms this year, or moving into slightly different positions this year. And so I really want to give a special thanksgiving to these folks in particular. The composition, as you'll see in just a moment, of our Bishops' Committee is going to be changing a little bit. These folks are not running off to Timbuktu. All of them, I think, are here, are committed members of this community, and that's what we're so thankful for. And in particular, I want to thank Ron. Excuse me. I'm going to have to grab my water. I've been talking too much. Ron has served for the last decade as the senior warden here, and has just been an incredible presence, a guiding light and a steward of this place. And as you'll see in just a moment, there's going to be some new things that are happening, thank you so much, that are going to be happening in the future that are going to require his specialty. And so Ron is stepping down as senior warden this year. We're going to have a little bit of a changing of the guard. And I just want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for that. And Ron, it's just as a token of the last 10 years that you have been a leader here. Seriously, we have this gift to share with you. There's a glass artist that we know that you like locally, and these folks know you well. And so there's some work here that we want to present to you. Spirit House, I believe? Soul House is the name of this piece. And just a token of our appreciation for you. So thank you.
We weren't church people for a long time. And then we had breast cancer back 20 years ago and survived it. And PJ said, well, I think I'd like us to go to church. She has a different story, but that's how I remember it. And so we started going to church in Danville, California. and then came here, and then Megan asked me if I would be on the Bishops Committee, and I said yes, and then she left. And Deborah said, well, would you be the senior warden? And I said, well, if you're willing to come down here from Scottsdale, then I should be willing to do whatever you want. And then she wouldn't let go of me. So it was an honor to be the senior warden for 10 years. But now it's time for a change, and I'm so excited for Susan. She's an excellent business person and committed to this church, and she'll do a wonderful job.
Thank you, Ron. And so we appreciate your service so much. Sure, absolutely. Give Ron a hand. And so now our next order of business, of course, has to be appointing a senior warden. And so on behalf of the Bishop of Arizona, I appoint Susan Walker as the senior warden of Church of the Apostles for this year. Thank you. And Susan, thank you for your willingness to serve. Susan's about to lead our voting on vestry and delegates and all that, which should be pretty straightforward this year, as you will see. But before we do that, I just want to cover a couple business items with you very quickly. The canons, aka the fine print. These are what our church canons here in Arizona say about who can be involved and participate in annual meetings and serve on our bishops' committee or vestries. And I just want to review that with folks so we're on the same page about that very quickly. It says, members of the vestry shall be elected at the annual parish meeting from communicants in good standing in the parish. So the annual meeting is what we're doing right now. And we have a bishop's committee, not a vestry, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And the voters are all communicants in good standing. And you will probably immediately ask, what is a communicant in good standing, right? Because that shows up twice. And so it's defined for us. All communicants of this church who for the previous year have been faithful in corporate worship, unless for good cause prevented, and have been faithful in working, praying, and giving for the spread of the kingdom of God are to be considered communicants in good standing. As you can see, the canons are written pretty broadly in the way they define that. I'm not going to be checking credentials at the door or anything like that. I will let this be between you and God, whether you consider yourself to be a communicant in good standing. I think everyone in this room is probably part of that. But that is what the canons say. So I just want to refresh that with you. And so with that, we can move on to our first major order of business here, which is the voting on Bishops' Committee and delegates.
Thank you. Dominic, I want to say thank you for your confidence in my ability to lead this team. And to all of you, I want to say we can do this together with God's help. So let us all stand shoulder to shoulder and push in the direction of success of this parish and of God's will for this earth. So we need some more colleagues, since you saw the list of the ones that are going off. So let me get over here so I don't bungle up the names. And we needed 4 persons. And wouldn't you know, by God's providence, 4 people showed up.
You didn't plan that, I swear.
No. But I would like the following individuals who have submitted their information is in the annual report to stand, so I know you know who you're voting for. So Lori, please. Bob Tate, John, Amelin, and Carol. There we go. Yeah, you might have to stand on the chair, Carol. No. So these are the individuals who have submitted their willingness to serve, and I would suggest we could elect them by acclamation. Yes? So moved. Okay, so we have the motion. All in favor? Aye. All right. Welcome to the Bishops' Committee. Now you'll, Charlie Walker. Yeah, I knew his last name. Yeah. Now, as it turns out, the canons, as in the rules for the Episcopal Church, say that the junior warden should be elected from the membership. So there's a little preaching there about what a junior warden is, but it's also known as the people's warden. So, Mary Zimmerman, would you stand? Mary and her darling husband, Randy, have agreed to serve another year as junior warden team. So do I have a vote by acclamation? All right, Diane seconds. And all in favor? Aye. Hallelujah! All right, Mary. As you know, the junior warden is responsible for the grounds. So the senior warden serves the clergy and the junior warden serves the church itself. And we all stand together to make it happen. So thank you, Mary. Please pass on our gratitude to Randy. And finally, we need delegates to the annual convention of the Episcopal Church of Arizona. That's to whom the diocese to whom we belong, and for whom Bishop Jennifer is our bishop. So we need 4 delegates and 2 alternates. And the convention will be held on October 18th and 19th, and I believe it's up in Phoenix, but believe me, I'll get you those details. So we were going to take nominations from the floor.
Kathy is volunteer, so we have 1.
Kathy, thank you. I need 3, 4, 5 more. Lori, okay. Jane, 3. Ronald Go, 4. Carol, thank you. 5. That'd be alternate. Carol will be an alternate. And by the way, I've been an alternate myself and always gone. So that happens quite often. Anyone else? Come on, just one more person. All right, thank you, Lynn. Thank you very much. All right, so we have our full complement of delegates to the convention, and we can get out of the bishop's doghouse for not attending. Thank you all.
Very good, thank you. Okay, let's move on with our business here, and we're going to put some good news first in the terms of the finance report, and let me invite our treasurer. I'm looking, David, right in front of me. Would you like to come? I've got some bullet points on the next slide for you.
Okay. I like to say, you've all heard me say that there's always a sense of anticipation that runs through, when the treasurer steps to the mic and has something to say. I mean, I come to you today with a really overflowing and grateful heart. Just a little bit of background. Some of you will remember we started 2023 with a budgeted deficit of $46,000. And for a variety of generosity and acts of God, I guess, we actually closed that deficit to all but $1,500 for 2023. Even at that, you'll recall at the beginning of the stewardship program, I indicated a number of things. I knew we had a number of people left and a number of people had arrived, and I knew the balance on that was a slightly positive, favorable balance in terms of slightly more income, but it was more or less a balance. We knew that Chimka would probably be with us longer, and in fact, not only longer, but would be taking up a larger role, and our relationship was growing, and that would allow us to have some additional income from providing services to them. But I indicated at the beginning of the stewardship program, if we had a chance at a balanced budget for 2024, we were really going to need something like a 10% increase per household pledge, or we weren't going to make it. And I'm pleased to tell you that the numbers came in somewhere between 10 and 11% increase per household, which is very satisfying, and I think is an indication of the breadth of support that we have in our community, and I'm delighted. And on that basis, again, I spent a career in risk management. There's a great deal of uncertainty around all these things, but with a reasonable set of assumptions, you'll see in the flyer that we have a proposed, a balanced budget for 2024, for the first time in a long time. A brief word of self-defense. You know, I'm accused of making my financial statements so small print that nobody can read them, so they can't complain. In fairness, in the Bishops Committee and Finance Committee, they're actually on full 8.5 by 11 sheets, so they're not really quite this small when you see them. But in any case, I'm not sure if there's anything more that we need. The one comment I think is important that we should remember. I believe it was beginning in the fiscal year 2022, back in 2021, the Bishops Committee made a motion that for the coming fiscal year, 2022, they were going to budget a 1% income allocated to mission and outreach, and that was to increase by 1% per year for some indefinite period of time to try to focus and force us into a role of doing more outreach and not just trying to make ends meet. So in this case, for 2024, we're now up to 3%, and if you look at the budget from last year and this year, you'll notice a significant increase, and that's the reason for that. And I think this is definitely a step forward, that we were able to maintain that and still, in effect, give ourselves a balanced budget as best we can estimate it at this point.
I think so. So like I said, we're proposing a balanced budget for 2024, which is amazing. A copy of that is in there. Again, also, you can see all this ovapostles.org/annual report if you want to look at this in kind of a bigger size. I do think we need a motion to approve the budget.
I move we accept the 2024 budget as presented.
Okay, and that's seconded. Okay, so the motion is seconded from Laurie. Thank you. And so all in favor of approving the budget as presented? Aye. Okay. Any opposed? I hope not. Really, there's no big surprises in there, to be honest with you. Staff salaries are the same. Nothing has sort of changed. The only thing that's changed is your support and also the size of the congregation. We'll come to that in a second. And our commitment to outreach. That's also continues to go up. Otherwise, things are basically the way they were last year. So there's really no surprises in there. And we're also very seriously committed, if we can this year, to getting an audit done later in the year, because we really value that transparency and want to be very clear and upfront about that. And that's important to me. So all of these things go together, right? As pieces.
But I will say, when we had the deficit, Dominic said, "I'll take a cut in my pay," which we said, "No, we don't want you to take a cut in your pay." But that was the first thing up, was if we're gonna go down, I'll go down first.
But you all, again, stepped up in enormous ways, and we're gonna see a little bit more about that in a second. Okay, so far so good, right? We've got good news. I've got some things I want to share with you, because now I get to talk for a little bit. This is the report of your priest in charge. And I want to just share a few key indicators with you. How are things going? And look, I know that some of these things are more important than others. Churches get criticized all the time for focusing too much on numbers and giving and stuff rather than on outreach and mission work and things like that. And that's true. Although it does, it helps, right? We also have a 501c3 nonprofit here, and that is something that I take very seriously as a steward of that organization. And so I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the numbers. So key indicators, I want to let you all know something. Our average Sunday attendance this past year is up 21.5% since last year. Yeah. Now, That's not a huge number in raw number terms, right? This is not one of those what is it, St. Martin's in Houston or whatever it is, that's got 2,000 members. This is a smaller church, but the thing is, it is a big deal. And I am pretty confident. Now, I haven't seen everybody's parochial report, but I am pretty confident. I told our bishops committee, I think we're probably the fastest growing Episcopal church in Arizona this year. I'm not joking. That's not hyperbole. That's real. I don't think there's probably any church percentage-wise that's seen that kind of growth in attendance in this past year, and that's just incredible to me and really, really remarkable. And I think you've seen it also here on Sunday mornings. It's been amazing. It's starting to feel not quite full, but it's getting there. Well, I'd like to have a conversation in a couple of years. Are we going to have a second service or something? That's the kind of problem that I want to have, right? Those are good problems. Just continuing on, I want to let you all know, obviously the financial health is dramatically improved. You just saw that in our treasurer's report. We were staring down a pretty scary deficit last year. Not only did that almost entirely vanish due to your generosity over the year, but also I'm continuing to underline this because it's so remarkable. This is something that just makes me incredibly happy that we are putting forward a balanced budget for 2024, as you can see in your packets. And also, along with that, as David said, we're going to continue to expand that First Fruits mission outreach. And because that's a percentage of that budget, it is actually a pretty big dollar number. You can see that in those budgets as well. That has increased a lot. And so now our outreach and mission team has to worry about things like, what do we do with all this money? I mean, these are good problems to have, right? These are good problems to have. This is stuff that we want to dedicate to helping people in our community, helping other organizations in our community, working with those community partners that we've been continuing to develop. And that's what's so exciting about it. And I want to also say, you're going to hear more about this in a minute, but our relationship with Congregation Beit Simcha has also been really expanding and deepening. And we're going to be doing some joint educational offerings with them. I mentioned that today. This spring, we're going to be doing some joint social events with them this spring. And that has brought so much life and energy, I think, to this place. And to be able to share this space with another community of faith and learn from each other. This is really important. And it's wonderful stuff. So these are all great news. I mean, this is stuff that really gets me excited about the future. I do, however, have a kind of big picture thing I want to talk to you about. I want to zoom out a little bit. And if you were here for our 20th anniversary, you've heard a version of this. I'm going to be shorter about this today. But we have a bigger issue that every nonprofit, every church, every organization out in the community has, which is, what do we do now, right? We just celebrated to our 20th anniversary of this building opening, and the church has been around since March of 1992. That was when the original mission was formed and planted. So the church has got some history, right? And when you have a lot of history, there's a tempting thing to kind of look backwards or to do that thing that's worst of all, rest on your laurels, or just kind of tread water. Let me tell you something. There is nobody in the world that wants to be part of an organization whose mission is to tread water. That is not of interest to anybody. And I have seen this personally, and I've seen the data on this in ways that have been transformative for me. I want to show you something. When I was in seminary, I mentioned this at the 20th anniversary event, but just really quickly again, I want to tell you, I came across something called Faith Communities Today, which was a very, very large study of thousands of congregations, 15,000 congregations, 80 denominations in the United States. They took surveys of these congregations, and they tried to understand what was unique about the growing ones? What were the ones doing that were healthy, that were growing, that other churches weren't doing? What were the things that were exciting, And a lot of people came into that research and they said, well, it's all about getting the music right. You've got to play this kind of music or churches won't grow. And other people said, oh, it's about having an awesome youth group and put in an arcade machines and everyone will come, or having a coffee shop and people will come. Here's the thing. There's lots of ideas about there, and this is where I like to be data-driven. What does the data actually say about church growth? I want to share with you one slide from some of the Faith Communities Today research that was particularly powerful to me. The single strongest correlation with growing churches was not any of those things. It was not music, it was not liturgy, it was not even how good the sermons were, actually. It wasn't anything like that. All those things help. The single strongest correlation that they found in their research was whether or not people could answer this question. Our congregation has a clear mission and purpose. You see that? That was the single strongest thing that every or not every, but almost all growing churches had that made a difference. Over 62% said that they would agree with that of growing congregations, and there was nothing else that had the same weight in all of their research. And what that says to me is that people care. There's been lots of research done about this. People care about where are you going, right? They want to be part of something that's active, that's moving, that's doing something in the world, that knows what it wants to be, that has a vision. People don't want to be part of something that treads water, right? Really wonderful historic churches sometimes can become like museums for liturgy. You know, you go in and this is how it was done in 1955 and it shall never change, right? But the congregations that are growing, the ones that are doing something new, are the ones that are not interested in how were we in 1955. They're asking themselves a different question now. They're asking themselves, who are we going to be in 2030? Right? That's the kind of question that gets people excited. That's the kind of question that leads to growth. And that is an important thing for us to deal with. And so because of that, we are going to work on two things this year that I think are going to be really important. One of them is much more important really than the other, but the other one is also important. You'll see in a second. Two things that I think are going to be very helpful to us going forward in the next year. And this next year of 2024 is going to be an exciting one. The first thing that we're going to be doing together is we're going to try and answer that question for ourselves, because that's essential, right? So if we're going to create a 5-year strategic plan, the idea is to work through it this year, 2024, and present it at this time next year in 2025. And this is why Ron's going to be busy doing something else, because Ron Overhold, God bless him, has been working in the Pima County court system doing exactly this kind of strategic planning with experts, outside consultants that have come in that he's worked with, and he very graciously is agreed to head that up for us. So he's stepping down from senior warden. He's going to be chairing a committee about the future of this church, and that's amazing. So thank you. Ron is already building his team. If you're interested about that, talk to him about it. We're going to be wanting to hear from everybody. We're going to have events throughout the year as we try and discern that. And we're going to try and present the answer to you in a year from now. It's a big project we have, but I think it's a really important one. And like I said, we'll be presenting this at this time next year. So we have a year of work in front of us, a year to do. And it's going to answer that question, which to me is really the essential question at the bottom of everything else. The question that we have to wrestle with is, who are we going to be in 2030? Not who are we now, that helps, not who were we, although that's interesting, but who are we going to be? And that is where all the lights come on, right? And I also want to say, you'll hear a bit more about this in a second, because we have some great news to share with you about this too, but we are going to be incorporating Beit Simcha into that plan, because we're starting to discern a destiny together, a shared destiny. You're going to hear more about that. And that is going to be really exciting. This church voted a couple years ago that it had a mission, a vision, this is going to be incorporated, to be part of a faith community enclave, that was a vision that you shared together. And we have some concrete ways in which that is coming to fruition around us. And so that is really, really exciting. The other thing that I want to do, and this is also about the future, but in a kind of more mundane way, is we really need to deal with a couple basic fundamental things related to the maintenance and upkeep of this church, this building. We've been here for 20 years, and there's some things that we need to deal with in order for us to live into that future in a comfortable way. I hate to break this to you, but it's the truth. There's not a single person that ever went to seminary because they said, I really want to raise money. That's what I want to do. I'm going to get an MDiv because I want to raise thousands of dollars. That is not why people go to seminary. Certainly not why Episcopalians go to seminary, I'll tell you that. That's true. However, we have a 20-year-old building, and it have some significant needs that are becoming a little concerning, and that we really need to get ahead of if we want to, again, live into that future, because we can't live into that future if, we can't actually worship in this space. That's the issue. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in just a second. Your Bishops Committee has identified two areas where we really have the biggest concern. And we talked about this a lot last year. We looked at our hopes and fears. These are the two things where we really could see like some immediate work happening to make things better. And yes, one of those things is the air conditioning. These units up here, some of them are older than others, but some of them, there's 7 units up there, some of them date from the building of the original structure. And some of them are not doing so well. In fact, one of them is completely dead. I'll show you that in a sec. We live in Tucson, right? And I hate to break this to you, but if the ACs fail, if we had 1 or 2 ACs fail in July, that would be a major crisis. I mean, we would not be meeting in here. We would have a hard time. It would be 85 degrees inside, right? I mean, this is not a situation that we can find ourselves in. And because of that, we need to kind of get in front of this, and we need to do something about it now. I don't want to do this, but this is the reality of where we stand, okay? So we want to deal with that. We want to make some steps in that direction. We won't be able to do all of it, but we want to make some steps in that direction. The second thing is the sign. I probably don't even need to tell you why. I don't need to explain why. The sign, when I'm talking about the sign, I'm not talking about the nice sign at the entrance. I'm talking about that one. The one, wherever, down there on the corner, the wooden sign that's half fallen down now. It's not a good situation, and we really need to do something about it. We don't want to do something that's cheap. We don't want to put a Band-Aid on something that's already not great. So let me talk to you about that stuff really quickly. So here's one of the ACs. This one quite literally blew up back in May. It died in May. If you want to know why it's so cold in the narthex and in this room, it's because that AC is dead. The AC that feeds those 2 spaces is gone. I talked to the AC guy we had several people come in and give quotes, and I said, well, shouldn't we want to replace the ones that feed the sanctuary? And he said, yeah, but the problem is that these out here, these have to work harder if those spaces out there are hot or cold, right? It's sort of one thing leads to another. It's like the Titanic sinking, right? Like one thing bleeds over to the other and makes it harder for all the rest, and then the others start to fail. So we have one, this was taken just a few weeks back. This unit is dead, like dead as a doornail, right? It's gone, it blew up. The door popped off of it and it was smoking and there's oil everywhere. I mean, it really is dead. So we really need to replace that. That is a major, major issue. We also have some that are in pretty good shape, and we don't need to deal with now. We have had an expert really look at them who knows what he's talking about, and I think we can kind of pick and choose strategically what we want to do. This is not the best sort of first impression. In fact, it's looking a little worse since I pulled this photo. It's not the best first impression of our church. So what are we going to do about this, right? We really would like to replace the sign with something else, something much more attractive, something that brings people in. We're on a major intersection, and there's people that drive by this every day that probably don't, is that church even around? Are they, is it occupied? It looks like it's falling down. So we've gotten some quotes on some different signs. This is an example of one we might have. This is very large. You can't tell from the design here, but this one's actually 10 feet tall. It's a really large kind of sign that would be really visible. If you've gone down the street here, St. Mark's Catholic Church down there, they have a really large kind of concrete style sign. We're looking at something like that, maybe a little more attractive than that. But that kind of gives you a rough idea of what we're talking about. We've also looked at ones like this that would kind of be more like the sign that's at the entranceway here, that would be kind of low to the ground, more kind of like you see it at a neighborhood. So we're looking at a couple of different options. This is something the Bishops' Committee is going to have to make a final decision on, assuming that we can raise the funds for it. But you get the idea, right? We want to do a much better sign at the entrance, something that's really attractive and that brings folks in. So just kind of summing up some of that. It's not a thing we want to do. I really don't want to stand here and say we need to raise a little bit of money for this, because I understand, people have already given a lot. You've been incredibly generous, and I don't want to sit here and say, just you need to do more, you need to do more. I am, however, saying that if this is interesting to you, if you care about this, and if it's something that you're passionate about, let's make it happen. Let's do as much as we can. There's no fail state for this, folks. If we raise enough for 1 or 2 ACs and that's it, we're still way ahead of where we were 6-9 months ago. So this is a really helpful thing, and we're moving in the right direction. This is not a kind of a double dip for, to fray operating budgets. You all have covered that for us. This is just to try and get these things so that we get ahead of them and we don't have an AC blow up in July. Like I said, we had one fail in May last year. We don't want to have another one fail in July and cause a major crisis. And so I was just saying how that is. And I don't think we can have much time on this. We could maybe get through a little while, but we're really tempting fate. The longer we have some of the really old units up there, that will have a failure at a time we don't want. And the other thing I want to say, just if this helps you think about it, capital projects are not part of the Platon Pledge. And I'm very glad about this, we give a portion of that Platon Pledge up to our friends of the diocese. It goes to other work. The nice thing for us about a designated gift to something like this project is that 100% of it comes to the church, to that project. Because you're designating it for this thing, we can't do anything else with it, even if we wanted to. We're doing it for this project and nothing else. But that also means 100% of that goes to that work to have an impact. So I just mention that to you as something that, if that figures in, it has a little more oomph, as we take care of this issue. So just putting the pieces together for you very quickly. This is what we're trying to do this year. Commercial AC units on our quotes run from about $15,000 to $25,000. They're not cheap. They're the big ones, the 10-ton ones that feed a space like this. Signed proposals are looking at $10,000 to $20,000, depending on how complicated they are. And we're putting these two things together. Based on the quotes we've received so far, we think we can do 2 or 3 units and maybe a sign on top of that. And so and then future work will be considered in our strategic plan, because there's still going to be some maintenance that needs to be done. And of course, you know how it is. You've owned homes before, right? There's always future maintenance. And we'll be building that into our strategic planning work in the future. And so putting everything together, in a perfect world, we'd like to raise about $75,000 this year, ideally in the spring. The AC work we want to have happen before the summer, at least as much of it as we can do. And I'm very excited to tell you that this is literally the second time I've talked publicly about this. The other time was at our 20th anniversary event. And just based on that and your enthusiasm and the number of people that have stepped up, we've already raised $31,000. I mean, we barely asked, and we've raised $31,000. So again, there's no fail state for this. I am extremely happy about that. I'm thankful so much for your generosity. And the good news is we have enough to do this now. We can fix this unit. But here's the thing. They're going to bring out a crane, and they're going to, if they're going to bring out a crane and a crew, it's a lot cheaper to do 2 than to do 1, and then do the other one in a year or something. So if we could get that a little bit higher, we'd be able to do both units at the same time, do at least 2 of the big units, and that would be a big deal. So I'll keep you posted about that. We'll be scheduling that work to be done sometime before things get deadly hot, to get that work done. And ideally, if we've got enough at that time to get both done at once, that would be kind of a perfect situation. So that's where we stand with that. If you want to contribute to this project, and I'm so thankful for you doing that, you can do a few different things. We made these really pretty, these kind of cute birthday cards for the church. There's a bunch of them with envelopes on the baptismal font. If you feel moved today, like, hey, I want to take my tax return in the spring, or I want to do something like that, and you want to make a pledge to it, you don't necessarily have to fulfill it now. You can use this to make that pledge. And there's a little story in here kind of describing what we're doing and some photos of the last 20 years in celebration of our 20th anniversary. We think of this as like a birthday gift to the church, right? You can also go and do a check with the memo line, 20th anniversary. You can give online, and the pull-down menu has an option called 20th anniversary. And we want to recognize everyone who gives to this at the end of it. So I'm trying to make this as short as possible, but I'm just letting you all know about this because this is really important for our future. And I really want to thank all of these folks who've stepped up. This is why we have $31,000 committed to this already. It's because folks have stepped up to the call and wanted to make it happen. And I really, really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything. We're really excited about doing this work and knocking it out in the future. Okay, that is the end of my report, and I just want to thank you so much. It's been a wonderful year. I know we're being ambitious, we're trying to do a lot, but that's what's exciting to me, right? We don't come to do nothing, we come to do something exciting and important and meaningful, and I don't want to shy away from those big, scary projects or kick the can down the road on things that will really help the church. And so that's why I'm talking to you about the things I'm seeing. And I think you understand that too. I mean, the energy here has been incredible, the support has been incredible, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support as well. Thank you. But we're not done because there's even more good news. So let me bring up Roy and John, who are going to give you a rundown on some of their work. You can use the right there to open your slides.
Before John and I start on the property team part, I really want to thank Dominic for everything he's done for this church, but I also want to thank Bishop Jennifer for sending him our direction, because without her, he wouldn't be here. I don't think the bishop gets enough praise for the works that she does in Arizona. So, we presented a few things on our land enclave committee efforts in the past. We're actually, next slide, we're going to show that we're negotiating with somebody right now. But our plan is that every person, every group, every interested party that wants to look at our land, our first thing is we must show them, and we want to show them our vision, our mission, and our core values, so that we know they're on the same page as we are. And that's extremely important to our congregation, and we want to make sure that it's extremely important to their congregation. And Randy's not here. Hopefully he's watching on Zoom, but we wouldn't have that mission, vision, and core values without Randy Rains, who has recently moved to Kentucky for family reasons and to be with his bigger family. So I want to thank Randy, and if you're listening, thank you very much. We've developed a realtor marketing website, including a video. We brought in a drone operator who surrounded our community. It came out really nice. I'm not sure, are we going to be able to? Okay, so we can't show it to you right now. We're having a little problem downloading it, but every commercial realtor can see the whole thing, our brochure, and the video to show his clients. But the drone video came out really nice. Every step we have taken has been approved by the Bishops Committee before we move forward. Okay, as you see up there, we are actually negotiating with Bet Simcha. They're excited to come and build a new synagogue at this location, and John will show you the location in just a few minutes that we've been discussing them with. They're our first step towards a religious enclave here, and we have meshed so well. We're good for them, they're good for us. So we're excited to move forward and have something with them. We haven't talked any money yet, but we're almost there, and we know they want to be here with us. We needed a professional to develop our property, at least visually, so we could see it. So we went to the Planning Center down in Tucson. They have done commercial real estate all over the Tucson area and outside the Tucson area. We met with Linda Morales, who is the head there. She has exciting ideas for us. She hasn't finished the project yet, so we can't show it to you today, but she is laying out where we could be, or where we are, where Bet Simcha can go, and how the rest of the property would lay out afterwards. Road coming in, the parking lots, the walkways, the flower areas, everything. It sounds like it's going to be a beautiful plan that she's putting together. So we're really excited about that. And truthfully, working with planning departments before, she gave us a wonderful price for this initial part. We're paying $2,500 for our portion. Bet Simcha is paying $3,500 for their portion, because she's doing a little bit more for them in regards to their building and that part. We're getting the big overview, and we're doing everything together, and she's very excited about the project we have going on. This once this gets out, I truly believe it will be the next step to the next religious group that we bring in. When they see this is coming together, this is going to be a huge step for us. Got one more slide, then John will come here. I just want to thank the Land Enclave Committee, which is Charlie, Mike, Elaine, myself, and John, and the subcommittee with negotiating with Bet Simca is John and I, and we have recently developed a marketing committee because we want to do things a little outside what the realtor is doing, and Lori and Bill and Elaine are on that committee. Our plan, which they're starting to work on right now, is to go through every religious group, find out where they are, where they're holding their services, and we're going to be looking for those religious groups that are meeting in schools, meeting in other buildings that are not a real church, and we're going to send marketing information to them to draw in some more new people. So that's part of our marketing plan right now. And John, you want to go from now, or? Oh, I'm sorry, I missed part of it. Bishop Committee has always been involved with us, but we want to really thank Ron and Dominic for their guidance over these starting to be many months.
So how many of you have heard about this project? Excellent, excellent. Charlie, you're on the team. You should have been putting your hand up. Come on. What's been fascinating with this project is the way that it continues to just grow in terms of interest and level of understanding. We're not just selling a piece of land. We're selling this concept. We're trying to present this concept, this enclave. There isn't one other like this one in Arizona. There are very few of these throughout the United States. And yet when we've been talking to people and expressing these ideas, they become engrossed with this whole idea that we can have other communities of religious experiences in the same area and work together. It's mind-boggling how this is working out. So the project structure, as Roy pointed out, is changing a little bit. Instead of just having the team, we've started to realize we needed to have some subcommittees. I know that's a business term, but it's just a group of people that can specialize and focus on a particular area. And they're, being managed by the team, but we're going to be using other people to help us move these things forward. One example of that is the Planning Center. They have worked diligently with the town of Oro Valley. They know them. They know how to present ideas. They know how to put things together so that they look interesting and acceptable to what their desire is or their goals are for the town. So those are the kinds of things that we're taking advantage of and going to be working on. So as you can see, this is a concept that's being developed. And as we develop it, it's meetings with Bet Simca as an example, we learn more things about what can we be doing together. The first thing is, you say, well, we have two different churches and, well, at least we can pray to the same God. That's good enough. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, there's more elements to it. What about the social needs of the community? Aren't we supposed to be looking at that as well as just what happens inside this church? So we found that there was a lot. We've spent several days even listing all of the things that we could do together, Bet Simca and the Apostles. It was amazing how many different items that we both agreed on what would be important for us to do. So that was something that we're realizing it grows as we move forward with this project. So the key components that we're focusing on is growth. Dominic mentioned this. I wasn't aware of this as what was going to happen before our presentation, so it was fascinating. The whole idea of growth is pretty important to us. It's something that we've already felt, but now we're starting to see the fruition of having growth in our own congregation. And it's a very positive thing. So it's the growth that could happen because of the needs that are in the community. We have land, we have the utilities in the land, and we're now starting to see other churches being interested. As Roy mentioned, and Dominic, we've had a relationship with Bet Simcha for over a year. First, it was just for them to be using our facilities Friday and Saturday, and then it became more about, well, what can we possibly be doing together? And so there's been several events that have taken place that have shown strong interest. Just to give you one example, they do not know if there is any possibility for people up here in Marana or Oro Valley that has a background that they would like to attend a Jewish congregation. They don't know that, but they're willing to take that that step for them to pursue that up here. And that's a big risk on their part, but they also believe that is a good possibility, that there is that option for them. They know that where they are located now, there is no growth. So we're back to where are you and what can you do about that growth? Their option is they decide they're going to be moving. Ours is that we need to understand what that opportunity looks like. Now, this is not 100% accurate. As you can imagine, we're dealing with PowerPoint and our limitations about our technical expertise. So when you see that white square, well, it's actually kind of turned on its side, Bet Simcha wanted to have its building so that it's facing east, just like we have our building facing east. And they realized that it would be smarter for them to be on the southern part of the property rather than the northern part. And part of that is because there's more protection for them, more security elements associated with them having it in this location than closer to the La Cholla Road. So you can see there's things that we start to all of a sudden realize we have got to pay attention to so that we understand what our approach will be. So this is something that you can see. It may look a little odd that it's there, but you can see that there are reasons, significant reasons for that location. And this is what the Planning Center is taking into account. And so they will be measuring it and locating it and doing, the ground usage, the utilities, where they're located, etc., so that it fits in nicely, so that when we present this to Oro Valley, it'll be clear that we're, following what the rules are, the ordinances are in Oro Valley, but also for the safety and protection of the Bet Simcha community. So what we're finding now is that there are more and more details are coming out that we need to pay attention to, that we need to make decisions on. As Roy mentioned, now that we have our website put up there by Long Realty on Crexi, that's the, not the residential, but the commercial realtor website, we have already had one response, and it's only been up there for like 3 days. So we know that there is people, organizations that are paying attention, that are looking at it. Now, that doesn't mean that we've got the next one already nailed down. We don't. But at least just to tell you and identify that it's actually up and functioning. In that process, let me try and... The Planning Center is going to be identifying things like parking that are going to be needed, walkways between our organization and our building here and theirs, because that's one of the reasons why we were talking about working together, is like they didn't want to just be stuck someplace on the property, but in a recognition of where our building is. So that's going to happen. So the next slide, where, you ready? Can you? Yeah, let's do it. One of the things that we keep on hearing about in our discussions is the new people that will be coming, the new families that will be interested in what we are doing. And as Dominic pointed out, it's like, what's the vision of the church? What is the growth desire of a church that really rings true when you're looking at where churches are going? If we look at our congregation, the demographics say we're probably in the 50s and above in age. So, we can continue to focus on those that seek to have retirement in Arizona or in Tucson area. We can also look at who is moving into Marana, who is looking into moving into Oro Valley. Families with children, with needs related to school, to after school, to activities for preschool. Right now it is just strictly a dream. We do not have anything concrete. This would have to be presented in more detail to the Bishops' Committee, certainly, and then at least discussed with the bishop. But we are starting to realize that if we wanted to work this out with Bet Simcha alone, there is going to be a need to have some kind of a multi-purpose building to take care of all these other things. If we said, oh, let's have an area for a wedding, or for graduation ceremonies, or for children for after school, well, where would we put them? How would we do that? If another church says, oh, I want to come in there, but we do a lot of Zoom, we do a lot of Facebook, etc. Do we have the facilities here today to be able to address those needs? We need to come to grips with some of those issues if we're seeing that we truly want to have that concept of growth. And it needs to be thought through, discussed, planned, and executed on. Now, what does that mean for the apostles? We've not talked about finance in any of these discussions, as you probably have noticed. We had the realtors initially. Let me just bring back a little editorial piece here. And we found out that they just wanted to immediately say, okay, what's the price per square foot? And then we'll sell it. That's not what we're looking for, is it? So with Bet Simcha, we have kept the realtors and the lawyers out of the committee meetings. We've discussed what is it that we want to become when we say that we're an enclave. And that's our focus. We'll eventually get to the dollar amounts, and I have to say also, our Jewish counterparts have already said, you know, we've been doing our own research. We know what the price is per square foot for land up here in Oro Valley. So it isn't like we're dealing in the dark. They understand immediately the price range that we're talking about. But beyond that, it's what is it that we're trying to accomplish here? And are there financial opportunities that exist that we may be able to look at this so that we do not go into debt? Which means that we are looking at not a short-term or a medium-term, but a long-term plan in this whole episode. So I don't want people to walk away saying, oh my gosh, I thought we were finally going to get out of being, in this kind of environment and we're going to become our own, church. It's not something scary that you should consider. We will keep you all apprised as we go down this path, but we wanted to identify to you, this is what growth, this is what expansion, this is what the future looks like.
Okay, and I think we have one more piece of good news, right?
Yep.
From Roy. Switching gears, but a great thing to learn. Thank you, John.
I'm going to try and talk quickly about the next subject because I know everybody has things to do today. But the church is a recent recipient of a nonprofit security grant. And I just want to give you a little background on why I applied for this and why it was so important to me to develop the safer security in this room. When we were all growing up, except for maybe Dominic and Jesse, churches were open. You could walk in there any time of day. They were safe places. They were places that you could sit down and bring your thoughts out to God by yourself. You didn't have to knock on a door and say, hey, can I come in? Can you unlock the door? Well, unfortunately, our times have changed, and that is not done anymore. But I will say, whenever Dominic is here during the day or Robin is here during the day, that church door is open, which a lot of places is not. But so I give you credit for that. Thank you very much. So back, it's a little history. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, community I worked in had a Catholic church, a Congregational church, and an Episcopal church. Within a couple months, they were all burglarized. Our neighboring community, right over the line, had a bunch, but there was 3 within half mile from where we were. They were all burglarized, and all these burglaries were going down at night. And we started talking with other Connecticut police departments, and they started having the same problem we did. And some of the Connecticut departments talked to New York, and they were having the same problems we were. And New York was talking to New Jersey, and they were having the same problems. So, unfortunately, due to the circumstances, but I was glad for my profession that I became part of a loosely 3-state church burglary task force. This came close to my heart. And during that process, we talked to a lot of ministers, rabbis, whatever. Everyone was devastated by what happened to their church. Their congregants were devastated by what happened in the church. So about 4 months ago, I found a Arizona nonprofit security grant. And we had 71 applicants to the state of Arizona. We were one of 12 that was funded. And we are receiving $46,600 to upgrade our security. We're going to be looking at one of my first major needs for this church. Whoever's been here at night knows it's totally dark out in that parking lot. We're going to be fixing all those lights out in the parking lot, so there's light in that parking lot when you walk out. And we're going to, if the money is there, we're going to do walkway lights too. It's a little, I'll have to find out what the final bids are. We're going to replace our non-functioning burglar alarm. I have no idea how long it's not worked, but I've been here 3 years and it hasn't worked since then. Okay, at least 10 years, but it's going to get replaced, and that we're going to put a video surveillance system in. We're not trying to spy on anybody, but we want to see who's coming and who's going from our church, especially when nobody's here. We want to make sure it's safe and the bad guys aren't coming around looking at the church. The other thing, I talked to Dominic the other day, when Dominic is in his office or Robin's in his office, I'm glad the doors are open, but they have no idea who's coming in and out through the front door. This will give them a little bit of an idea who's coming into the church, and Dominic can go out and greet them when they get here. So that's a good thing too. There's several other things we're going to do under that $46,000. but we're also going to do some training. We're going to do some training with the Bishop's Committee, but we're going to offer it to all of our congregates and to Beth Simca. I already arranged with the Oro Valley Police Department to come in and do an hour presentation. I'm working with the Golden Ranch Fire Department for them to come in and do a presentation. They're both available to do Sundays. They're both available to do afternoons, evenings, whatever is good for us. And right now, we don't have an emergency plan. And part of the grant, we're going to have an emergency plan. And we're going to designate certain people that if somebody has a heart attack, who calls 911? Who gets the AED? Who does this instead of everybody kind of running around and, it's not organized. If a fire starts in this building, where do you evacuate? Who's in charge of the evacuation? So that's all going to go in the plan. And I think I've talked enough. So it's coming forward.
And Roy did an amazing job. This is because of Roy's work, by the way. I just want to let you know that. He has been a chief of police. He knows how to cut through, local government bureaucracy in amazing ways, and really, he's been an incredible asset to us. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Okay. I know we've said a lot today. I know it's been a while. But I just wanted to give just a couple minutes if there are sort of questions for the good of the whole at this point. I know that there's been a lot said today, many things presented, but if there's any kind of burning questions. Yes, sir, Charlie.
Dominic, you mentioned in terms of activities at church, one of the ministries that you mentioned verbally had me looking through the annual report. I just don't see anything in there on our music ministry.
Yes.
No report on that. Can we have a few words? Can somebody say a few words about what we've done and what we're planning to do?
I hate to put you on the spot, David, but do you want to talk about music really quickly? 2 minutes?
Okay, that was my fault. I forgot about the deadline for the annual report, and then I was reminded like 2 hours before, and so I quickly in school during my classroom breaks, I pulled something together and submitted it 2 minutes late from the deadline. But anyway, I basically reported, it's been great being here for a year. It's been great getting to know all of you. Bob and I really love this congregation. We've grown to really love the choir members and gathering that ensemble together, and not just creating people that sing together, but creating a group that's cohesive in fellowship and in purpose. And so, of course, there's always room for more. But anyway, and then the other part is, just understanding how worship fits into worship. Music fits into worship. And, last summer I submitted some worship articles in the newsletter just to kind of share my thoughts and ideas and education about worship. And I think the gist of it is really I'm still observing a congregation. I'm still trying to figure out what is the worship voice of our congregation. Because every congregation has a unique worship voice. What's meaningful to them? As a congregation, what's the best means and resources for making and allowing worship to happen in a congregation? And so, aside from the choir, that's sort of my heartbeat in music and in worship in the church.
Okay, thank you so much. If you do have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. You know where to find me. Reach out to Susan. Reach out to any of our members. I just want to say a few kind of upcoming events. Obviously, Show Tuesday, Pancake Supper, Ash Wednesday service is coming up. Tucson Jazz Institute concert. We're going to have a spiritual gifts workshop. There's so much happening in February. I haven't even talked about that yet. But I'll let you all know about it really soon. We have a spiritual gifts workshop led by Kathy Black from the diocese. Will be here on February 24th, coming up in a few weeks, which is going to be a great opportunity during Lent. We're going to have a Lenten Soup Supper series with Rabbi Sam Kohan and our friends from Beit Simcha. And I'm starting choirs and confirmation class at the end of February So if you have, there's even more than that. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you have questions about any of that, please let us know. Any final words, Susan? Are we good to go?